Welcome to Inside the Blueprint, the conversation where we explore how bold ideas become real-world solutions. I am Carl Manlan, and today we are talking about fashion, but not the kind you find on the runway.
And I'm Claire, your co-host. I'm especially excited for today's one because it's about clothes, community, and small changes that actually add up. Today's guest works at one of my favorite places in Dubai, Thrift for Good.
Jade Povey is a community engagement manager at Thrift for Good, a non-profit thrift store that turns donated clothing into funding for global children's charities while helping reduce textile waste here in the UAE. She grew up in South Africa and now leads community-focused sustainability efforts with heart, humor, and purpose. Jade, we are so glad to have you with us.
Thank you very much. I feel very honored to be here today.
Before we start, if this podcast resonates with you, hit subscribe, leave a comment, and share it with someone who needs to hear it.
Every listen keeps us having these conversations across generations about things that really matter.
We are building something meaningful here, and we are glad you are part of it.
All right, let's get into it.
South Africa,
Yes.
we're all migrants in a way. So when did you make that connection between your work in South Africa and what you wanted to do when you came here?
So the two actually weren't even linked. I had no idea what I was going to do in Dubai. In fact, it wasn't even on our cards to be here. But I was in the sustainability industry in South Africa, but very industrial. I was working on lighting. I worked with the power supplier by the name of Eskom there, who had a rebate project. So big corporations that were consuming a lot of energy, if they took on the project, they got rebates in terms of changing lighting, HVAC, solar power. I was in that kind of field of sustainability. Came to Dubai by default with no plans in terms of continuing sustainability.
What made you want to work at Thrift for Good?
It was more the volunteering that attracted me. Not being a local, you look for your tribe. You want to have those conversations of community, sustainability, environmentally friendly things. It took me a while. It took me 2 years, I will be honest, to find that tribe, and I found that in Thrift for Good. And given my background, it kind of was almost an automatic flow into the position that I hold now.
Waste, community, what's the connection?
I mean, I think the two are intrinsically linked. People assume it's just a normal little family and they can't make any differences. And that's where we come in and say, in your household, you can make the smallest changes. Use your coffee grounds to make scrubs. Use your old beads from a dress that you're throwing away. Repurpose it into jewelry. And that's where the waste and community come in. It's just spreading that word, especially with youth.
And how does donating or buying other clothes, like secondhand clothes, help the planet?
So the message that we want to send is nothing needs to be dumped. Okay, so rather consider reloved or thrifted first. We're not out there to spread the message of, oh, you have, cupboards full of clothing, you're a baddie. We say work with what you've got, educate yourself, and make wiser choices after that. So that's, where the waste comes in. If the option is, well, I do need new outfits, maybe you've started a new job or something, come and, consider the thrifting option before buying new.
So all this is linked to the ability to change behavior.
Yes.
So do you see that the work in the community engineer more behavior change? I won't say not necessarily peer pressure, but what's the connection here?
I definitely see the changes. I work with a lot of schools, young kids who they have it as a subject. The interesting thing is they're taught that. They have the energy and the wherewithal to say, great, I want to do this. Where do I go? Who do I link with? So yes, talking to the kids, they then take it home, have the conversations with their parents saying, we did something at school or we did an activation. We should really consider this or that. In terms of community, especially locals, like I said, little things that they wouldn't even consider could be repurposed. I have seen the changes. People have come back to us, the feedback that we get saying, we didn't even think of this as a simple thing to be able to make the changes.
So then how do schools or students or kids, how could they help?
So we start with school packages. We cater from littlies, 4 years old, right up to your 17-year-olds. They have specific packages that they can sign up for. We make it age specific. So for the littlies, it's a lot more interactive. You work with your hands. You make things that's colorful. It's exciting to spread the same message as we are spreading to the older kids, where we're talking more entrepreneurship, circular economy, those sort of things. So that's more so how we engage with the schools in terms of school trips, something unique.
What's the bigger reason behind this commitment to community?
From a Thrift for Good perspective and the founder, it's helping children around the world, using something that is definitely, as we've discussed now, something very much needed in this region, educating people about waste, and then using the profit from the items that we get, the workshops, the engagements, the corporate event days, etc., using all of that and supporting children around the world. That actually is the ultimate purpose.
Going back to like when you were younger, did you ever go to a secondhand store or thrifting store when you were younger?
Growing up in South Africa, if you ever travel there or are native to that country, yes, there's thrift stores all over the place. So it's actually quite trendy. It's a thing to do on the weekends. South Africa is very big on flea markets and things. So you basically grow up knowing that. So yes, absolutely.
Are there moments when you feel that it's just an uphill battle?
Yes. Changing mindsets. A lot of people link it to budget, yet they want their portfolios in terms of CSR and all of that fulfilled, but they want it just given to them without making any effort or actually participating and doing something actively to change it. Sometimes it's just about ticking boxes, which for us who are passionate about what we do, it's frustrating. It seems like an uphill battle. But then you have your wins and you say, all right, it makes it worthwhile. Tomorrow, I'm happy to do the battle again.
So what's your favorite part about your job?
I would say the creative side. I've just done a whole week of activations with a corporate here, and the theme was repurposing fabrics and beads and things we've rescued, repurposed, and remaking it into jewelry. It was so well received. Ladies could make earrings, very unique, every single piece unique. They could make bracelets with little charms on. Again, everything that's been donated to us that was broken and was assumed to be end of life. So yeah, I have a really creative side, which is great for my personality. I have a very unique personality.
I agree.
So I get to exercise that in a creative way. That would be the most fun part.
So we've had at home where, I put a bag, I tell the kids, you go into your cupboards and please fill that bag. And then we went to the store, we dropped the bag. What happens?
I'm so glad you asked that question. And that's part of our mission, is educating, whether adults or kids. Come in, join us, be part of our community to understand what happens with the items. And that's really important so that you understand the level and the amount of work that's going into sorting into retail quality for our stores, which we have 3 of, going into flea market, going into labor cap. Why is it not making the grade in this one or that one? So as much as there's education, our mission is to not make it a disengaged sort of donation or collaboration. Understand the entire process. And that's where you understand the circular economy that's happening behind the scenes.
What would you say would be the most surprising thing so far you've learned from working at Thrift for Good?
I think the level of, it's probably not the right word, but unawareness of, people still ask the questions, how does this affect climate? We don't understand. It's crazy to think that in 2025, people are not, with the amount of social media, the events, everything around all of this, climate change and environment and things, people are still so uninformed and uneducated about every single thing is connected, whether it's ocean, whether it's fabrics, those sort of things. That's most surprising to me.
So if I don't do this process of thrifting or donating, where does this end? Let's say the clothes that, let's say, we dump. Where do they end? If you didn't exist and many of others around the world were not doing what you were doing, what would happen to these clothes?
Quite honestly, we're a drop in the ocean of helping, but there's a long way to go. Where does it end up? In the landfills. I can promise you, you will find your pair of jeans in a landfill in Dubai 10 years down the line because it's not biodegradable. That's where it's landing up. If it hasn't been bailed up and certain organizations and sent to other countries, generally third world. So we're literally moving pollution from one side of the world to the other, but it's not going away. It's still there. You'll find it in, like I said, 10 years. Spandex, your gym clothes. Nobody's lived long enough, and that's a scary fact, to know how long it takes to biodegrade. It's approximately 200 years. So you'll find your aerobic leggings in a landfill in 200 years' time. That's frightening.
Would it be like possible to make clothes that would be biodegradable so that if, let's say, someone were to throw it out, if they didn't know that they could give it to some like secondhand store, would they be able to make?
It certainly would help towards the problem. The biggest thing is the very big fashion houses that have been around for decades have a certain way of manufacturing their clothing. It would take them reinventing the entire process, the entire manufacturing plants, to be able to specifically make biodegradable clothing. And it's just not a cost that they're willing and able to undertake. It's easier because of mass consumerism, especially in the fashion industry, fast fashion industry. They're okay with, because it's all about profit at the end of the day, unfortunately.
Is awareness that sort of is what that blossoms. It's the start of that virgin flower that will come. What does it really take to shift behavior?
Consistency. Making it, as I said, a part of your family life every single day. Just recycle your plastic bottles. Give them a wash. Send them to those organizations. Clothing, send it to us. If we can't use it, we have so many partnerships in place for what we lovingly term end of life. We will find a home for it, but it won't be in a landfill for sure. So that awareness every single day, consistency.
Have you ever seen, like, from when you go to like schools, have you ever seen like kids or teenagers like change their habits to become more aware of like not throwing their clothes away?
Doing what I do, I've come across, like yourself, Claire, amazing children that are wanting to make a change, just with, even though they're young, they don't have the ethos of, I'm too little, I don't know, I probably couldn't make a difference. I've seen kids that are, honestly, in my opinion, future leaders for the initiatives that they've taken on at their very young ages and said, I'm going to keep nagging my school, my principal, the relevant person, to say, all we want to do is a clothing drive in the school. And they keep coming up against brick walls, and eventually they get it right because they just continue to nag. So yeah, I've definitely seen kids that are, like I said, in my opinion, future leaders.
They are. I remember going to Claire's class for a talk on sustainability, and the knowledge that they had, I was like, at that age,
Absolutely.
I don't think I had any clue of what they know today and how they think about these things. So you're right, you have to realize that this is definitely changing. So if we then take the next generation, so Claire's generation has more awareness, which means from a behavior change perspective, they're on that trajectory because there is that awareness that we didn't have of the things that really were creating problems down the line. So if you think about the region and the UAE, what would it take for your organization and the community to really think circularity as a sort of new way of life? So in terms of shifting, moving forward to shifting behavior.
I think us growing, probably tripling the size that we are, because again, like you say, the education is there, the keenness is there, the interest, the enthusiasm. But like a muscle, going to gym, unless you're exercising that, the kids, like I said, are enthused. They say, well, where do I go? If they don't have that place, they're going to say, I'll go on to the next interesting thing. That's what we need, is possibly more similar organizations to us, or to be able to grow extensively, to be able to cover here, we are the feed that you can come and join us and continue that education, the awareness, etc.
So how do you think you'll be able to do that? Like,
long term, the plan is to have presence in all of the Emirates. It's not as simple. Every single emirate has different bureaucracy and those sort of things, especially around the word fundraising. It's very, very difficult. But long term, that is the plan, to have presence again, to, for different communities to be able to engage with us, schools, universities, because each segment will then grow individually and organically in the Emirates.
Clothing waste is not what we usually associate with, because waste will be, because the time is not the same. So from food perspective, if you don't consume, it may go off, then it's wasted. Pair of clothes, you may not fit in them, or they may get a little bit tight or loose, or fashion changes. How do we get people to start to think of an item as a long-term object that can have multiple lives?
Again, it comes back to education, but in a fun way, not dictating. You may not follow fashion. You may not have colorful things. It must be all dark and drab and things. Basically developing capsule wardrobes. You need 30 items, including shoes, to be able to have...
That's it?
In total, like I said, including shoes. 30 items in a cupboard. People would never know that you're wearing the same things if you just mix and match those items. So I think the underlying message is, great, you go into a fast fashion, I'm going to name drop Shine, Shein, I'm not sure how you say it. Yeah, basically you order from a great picture. Once you get it, the color probably is off or the sizing is off, because it's really, really fast fashion. They have a return policy, but they make it so difficult. Actually, it's complicated. People just give up and they say, oh, well, I'll just give it to Thrift and I'll order 4 more, but in a bigger size. And that's where, because nothing is regulated, mass consumerism has taken over in the fast fashion industry, and they're feeding that beast constantly. So, yeah, I mean, the only way you can educate is, do you need 10 of those in every single color? Get 2 basics. We're not saying, again, don't be fashionable, don't be stylish, but get maybe 2 and work it, like I said, with 30 pieces. You can make a whole, 2 weeks worth of outfits. Nobody would know that it's crossed over.
I'm going to go and count when I get home.
From a gentleman's perspective, you're probably on par. From a lady's perspective, I don't fall into a category. I'm a terrible shopper. We probably, we fail horribly, because, you'll find something. Orange intrinsically, it's quite interesting, is not your color, but you'll buy it. You'll find that orange will hang in your cupboard because intrinsically your brain knows, not my color, I'm never going to wear this. And you go, oh, why did I buy this? Sort of thing. So that's where the ladies fail, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's also hard because, like for example, for me, like sometimes I would buy that thing, and if I really like it, I'll buy it in the next size up so I can have it for longer. Or if you see something, then you're like, oh, but this is also nice in this color, and then you'll buy it. So, yeah.
So what are you going to change then?
Well, probably because there's a lot of clothes that I like to wear, but I change maybe the top or the pants or so, yeah. But I wouldn't say that I do a lot of shopping.
I agree.
I would say I usually kind of work with what I have, but sometimes I do shop. But I usually only buy it if I know I can put it with other things, because I know sometimes in school there's Spirit Week and you're like, oh, but I need to get this, and I was like, but I'm never gonna wear this again. So I didn't end up buying it because, yeah, it would be a waste.
Very cool. Do you have a question for us?
I don't. No, I didn't come armed with questions. Just more conversation and education. You know me, I'm very passionate about what I
know that.
Just wanting people to know about, come to us, guys. We're a great community. We're very focused on that. So if not for anything else, come and find your tribe.
So speak to us about your maybe 2 or 3 examples of a volunteering activity I know you do many of them. The one that I recently learned about and I really enjoyed was that ability to provide choice to blue-collar workers. Tell us more about this one.
So actually, it's really exciting for us. Even though we're 4.5 years old, it's brand new for us this year because license-wise, permit-wise, a whole lot of the boring stuff, the bureaucracy side, we've never found the right partner where everything permit-wise has linked up. We now have that right partner. We're able to go into labor camps. We want to do it. We're a very unique brand, so we like to do things. Dignity is always important for us. So we like to do things in a dignified way and unique way. So as opposed to getting in people saying, oh, well, pack these packs. Just put anything in it. Give them a pair of pants and a shirt. We do it in a different way. We actually put out our clothing rails, which we have many of, and we have a shopping experience for the labor camp dwellers. And they're able to choose, hey, I like blue. I like yellow. Yay, there's a something in yellow for me. Actually, I'm a XXL. The next person is a small. They get to choose their sizes. Of course, I only have one-off pieces of everything. It's been really well received that, people are able to choose. Like you say, it's not a case of a cattle mill. Take your pack next. Take your pack next. They've loved that, where they feel like they're being treated as dignified people.
Powerful. There's one thing that I was speaking about earlier, where when we're living in Cape Town, we had this friend of ours that ran Petit Fox,
Yes.
which is a secondhand for actually children clothes and baby clothes. And it's been interesting because you realize that as a first parent, you go through this exercise of wanting everything to be new, brand new, and sort of, but is it really necessary? And what you experience of that in the UAE or even in South Africa for that matter?
So for us, the children's clothing, as you were saying, rightfully, we were speaking about it earlier. Children grow so quickly. And as a first-time parent, possibly you say, oh, I want the best of everything, great brands, only to know that the kids are going to ruin it because, sorry to be crass, but there's vomiting and a whole lot of things that happen. And that item is ruined, irrespective of the amount that you've paid for it. So generally, it ends up coming to us. We have an influx of children's clothes, especially, I would say, 0 to 6 months old.
Yeah, because they grow fast. And
Absolutely. People they get gifts, they have, store parties, etc., etc. And the kid doesn't even get to wear it because it never was their size. And they're not going to go backwards. They're only going to continue to grow. So they'll never fit into that size. Interestingly, linked to that, we work with a company that does thrifted maternity wear, which is absolutely great. You are definitely only pregnant for a certain amount of time. So do you need to repurpose your entire wardrobe? Because it's not going to be for the next 3 to 4 years following fashion trends. It's just sizing-wise and specifically made for maternity. So that's a great initiative. And, for obvious reasons, we've partnered with them to be able to say, here's an option for you. Get you a couple of items and choose that way.
If you had a magic wand, what would you use it for?
I think I would wave it around and just remind people that we can get by with so little. You need the absolute basics, not to do the consumerism, whether it be from a clothing perspective, overbuying and all of that because it's easy, it's convenient, over-consuming in the terms of food, everywhere in the world, how much waste there is. But yeah, definitely just go back to basics, guys. There's so little that you need to still function and be a thriving human being.
We had Lara from the Waste Lab
Brilliant.
a couple of weeks ago.
That's really nice. They do brilliant work.
And it's the same vein, is that behavior change about get what you need. And I think from this conversation, I'll go back and count the number of items that I have. Because I never thought about it this way, but it's true. It's like, their combination.
Yeah.
Orange is my favorite color. The rest of the family doesn't really like it, but I love wearing an orange and very bright orange, but I don't have many. I think I have 1 or 2 items like this. And maybe the third thing that resonates is that element around behavior change.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it boils down to that ability to change your behavior. And you mentioned a word there, consistency.
Yeah.
it's a piece that we struggle with because we are creatures of habits. And it's very easy to sort of continue to do the same thing. But the fundamental question is, how much of this can we continue to absorb if we're thinking about the next generation? And I remember, when I think about growing up as a 13-year-old, I had no concept of sustainability.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Even though it was very much present in the daily lives, as I remember women knocking on the door and collecting empty bottles.
Yes. And the cardboard boxes.
And the cardboard boxes in Johannesburg. So as I think back, it was there. There were communities that were thinking about it, doing it, but I don't think I was necessarily sort of very well aware of that. So today when I think about, going to Claire's class, where Claire talks about what she does in terms of recycling or thinking about things that we should or shouldn't be doing, I am hopeful.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that. As are we. We really do see, even though it's small change, we're hopeful. Yeah.
Very cool. All good?
Yes.
Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Very nice
it
to have
was
you.
so nice.
Thank you for coming.
Yes.
I hope it was what you were expecting.
It's not about what we expect. It's a conversation. So I'm glad that we had a conversation.
Thank you for listening to Inside the Blueprint. We hope this conversation gave you something new to think about.
If you enjoyed these episodes, there's more where that came from. Tap on videos to catch other episodes. Each one explores a different part of a bigger picture.
A new episode drops next week, so hit that subscribe button and we'll see you soon.
And until then, keep building, learning, and asking better questions.
Bye.